Hello, what's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for joining me here this morning on Narcissism 101, cracking the code with me, Paul Wisdom. Good morning. Hope everybody's having a good Sunday morning. Hope that you are enjoying your weekend. And I got a good one for you guys this morning. So before we get into what we're going to talk about today, as usual, if you would like a one-on-one session, please email me, paul.wisdom_03@hotmail.com, or you can send a text message to 647-406-3057. If you want to talk, if you want to vent, if you need some more advice, if you're trying to figure out whether the person you're dealing with is a narcissist or not, please feel free to reach out to me. Just a note with that, if you're new to the channel, and if you are, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. We appreciate having you a part of this community, a part of this channel. Just a quick thing, if you do want to call, just send a text to the number I just mentioned. Let me know your name. Let me know that you've been watching some of my videos, and then I can give you the help that you need. If you just call, I may just block the number just because if I don't know who it is, I'm not going to answer because like I've said in my previous videos, there are a lot of predators out there, and you just have to be careful with who gets in contact with you, gets your information, access to you, and such the likes. So just keep that in mind. Just send a text, let me know your name, and that can get you up that you need. All right? All right, perfect. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. The title of this video is Narcissists Don't Answer Questions Directly. They do this. And we're going to talk about what that thing is. They do two things, but we're gonna talk about that. So narcissists don't answer questions directly. Now, I made a video some time ago, and that video was entitled word salad. What is word salad? And that's a little bit of a part of what we're going to talk about today. And that is that narcissists, you have to understand, narcissists, they don't like taking accountability. Narcissists hate accountability because what accountability does is it makes them have to be honest with themselves and be honest with whomever the person or people it is that they're dealing with, right? And so narcissists, what they do is that in order to, not have to take accountability, what they do instead is that they when you're looking for an answer to a question, let's say for them to be accountable, let's say that you guys are having a conversation, and let's say that you have kids with your narcissist, and if you do, I'm sorry to hear that. But let's say that you guys have kids together, and let's say that you're talking about the kids and how you guys are going to raise them, and what you're going to do for them in the future things for the kids and things like that. And the narcissists, what they do is when you're having that conversation with the kids, what they do, if you're trying to reason with them and trying to present solutions. Let's say that you guys are trying to come to a solution together. Well, you're trying to come to a solution, but they're not. What they're doing is they're counter parenting with you. They're trying to make it seem like your ideas are terrible. They invalidate your ideas, and then they'll say that you don't know what you're talking about. That's stupid. We're not doing that. And then you're sitting there, and then now you're probably upset, or you feel so bad. And if you're a woman and you probably most likely would start crying because now you feel like nothing you say matters, right? And unfortunately, that's just true when you're doing narcissists. Nothing you ever say matters. But what we're talking about today, guys, is the fact that narcissists, they don't like to answer questions and be direct, right? Especially if it's a covert narcissist, they like to be indirect, right? Or they won't answer your questions at all, or they'll give you the silent treatment. Let's say that you want an apology from them. Let's say that they did something wrong to you, right? And let's say that you're looking for an apology. You're looking for them to, say sorry, or just be accountable. Just be an adult and say, okay, I did wrong. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Well, the truth is that you're never gonna get a sorry from the narcissist, and if you do, then it's just a sorry for them to dodge accountability, and they'll never be direct with you and say, hey, look, I don't. I'm sorry for what I did to you. I promise that I won't do it again. They won't do that. They can't do that because what they need to do is they need to make it seem as though nothing they ever do is wrong. And this nothing that they ever do is wrong. It's all because narcissists are insecure people, right? Narcissists are very damaged people. Narcissists are very anxious people. They're full of anxiety. They're depressed people. They are unhappy with themselves, right? Because they have a disorder within their mind, and the demons that they've attached to themselves don't allow for them to ever be happy, but ever be satisfied with who they are, or with anybody else for that matter, right? And so when it comes down to, narcissists not wanting to answer your questions directly, what they do is they give you word salad. Like, they'll start word salad, meaning, and if you're new to this channel, what word salad is, if you don't know what word salad is, it's when they start talking about things that have nothing to do with the conversation. If you're talking about the kids, they'll start talking about how their day went at work. They'll start telling you things like, "Oh, well, today at work, I did this grade, I did that grade," or one of my friends, they're having a birthday party. I can't wait to go, and we're gonna talk about this, we're gonna talk about that, and they're talking about something that has nothing to do with anything. And then maybe you try and say, "But we're talking about the kids right now," and then they'll say, "What's your problem? Why are you getting so serious for? Do you have a problem with me? I can talk about anything I want." And then before you know it, now you're confused and you're just like, "But what the?" And you're trying to figure out what's wrong. Well, what's wrong is that the narcissist, they don't want to be accountable. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing, guys. What narcissists do a lot of the times, and you have to understand this, is that narcissists only do things when it suits them, right? When they feel like there'll be a payoff for them, where they feel like they'll be getting something in return. And if there's nothing for them to get, they have no problem, with ignoring their partner. Let's say that it could even be something like this. If you're talking about, let's say, a vacation that you guys are going on, what they'll even do sometimes is they'll actually ignore you the whole time. Like, they'll sit there and they'll make it seem like they're listening to you, but they'll actually be ignoring you, right? They'll actually be phasing you out. They won't even be listening, right? And they do this not because there's anything wrong with you, but they do this because they don't want to be direct with you. They don't want to be accountable, right? Narcissists, they love word salad because it's a perfect way for them to gaslight you. Because when they're giving people word salad, when they start talking about things that have nothing to do with anything at all, they're gaslighting you, because they're trying to make you doubt yourself. They're trying to make you, lose your focus on what's actually being talked about, right? Because the truth is, a narcissist knows what's being talked about. They know exactly what's happening. But the truth is that they just don't care, right? They flat out just don't care about anybody but themselves, right? And so that's what you have to understand about, narcissists being, not answering directly, right? And even what they'll even do sometimes, guys, is that they'll actually get one of their flying monkeys enablers to talk for them, right? If it's a covert narcissist, I guarantee you that their narcissistic mom, because most of the times it's a narcissistic mom. There's a narcissistic dad as well, but narcissistic dads, I find, are more they're more territorial. Like, they can be malignant narcissists because, when you think of man, you think, very strong and very built and very much, control. They're dominant and they have more control when you think of a man, right? When you think of a woman, you think, usually soft and, usually wanting to, do this for their kids. If they're a toxic mother, then they will do that thing for their kids. It doesn't matter what the cost is. And so, when you're dealing with they'll get their narcissistic mother to even speak up for them, right? They'll get their narcissistic mother to, to say what needs to be said, right? Say what they can't say for themselves. Because narcissists, they don't like direct confrontation, right? They don't like it because they know that at some point in that direct confrontation, that the truth is going to come out about them. That's why they're so paranoid. That's why narcissists are so anxious. That's why they're so depressed, because narcissists, they're afraid inside their minds. They're always afraid that somebody is going to find them out. That's why when it comes to relationships and marriages, that's why it never ends in anything good. And that's why it ends with the narcissist running off, and them, trying to paint it at like you're the bad guy. But the truth is that you're not the bad guy or the bad woman. You didn't do anything wrong. The truth is that what the narcissist wanted was, they knew that truth was going to come out one way or the other, right? And that's why every single one of the relationships, they don't end in anything good, right? Because narcissists, they run off. And they run off because, not because the person is bad necessarily, but it's because the narcissist doesn't want accountability. They don't want to be honest. They don't want to. And the thing is, they can, like I said before in this video, narcissists cannot self-reflect, right? You can self-reflect, I'm sure. If you're watching this video, you can. You can take a moment and say, hey, I know I did this wrong. I know I did that wrong. I want to do better, right? But see, narcissists, remember, they believe that there's nothing wrong with them. They believe that because there's nothing wrong with them, that they don't have to be accountable, that they can do anything that they want, right? And that usually comes from their childhood, right? In their childhood, they weren't taught, when they were children from good, lovely, stable, healthy parents, that there are consequences to life, that there are consequences to things that you do, right? They weren't taught that, right? Because most likely they grew up with narcissistic parents. And I've said this before in my videos. People who turn out to be narcissists, usually 99% of the time, there is a narcissistic parent somewhere. Right now, if that child grew up, without a dad, or grew up without a mother, right? That child can also grow up narcissistic as well, because what happens is when you're not given the love, and when you're not given, what each parent brings to the table. So when you have a father, there's usually stability. Like I said before, when you think of a man, you think strong, you think protection and things like that. Not all the time, but most of the times you think that protective and all that stuff. When you think mother, you think nurturing, you think somebody who can be there for the child when the child is going through a rough patch. That's what you think of when it comes to mothers, right? But when you don't have one, the child usually grows up to be unstable, right? Because they don't have the stability from both parents. Right. So, but what I'm saying though is that narcissists usually it starts in the family, it starts in the home, because there's a narcissistic parents, or maybe both their parents are narcissistic. I don't know. But what I'm saying, guys, is that narcissists, they can't be direct with you. They can't open up to you fully, because if they know that if they do, then they know that the truth's going to come out. And they can't afford to have that truth come out about who they are, right? Because they spend a lot of their life creating this image, like I said in some other videos, creating this image for themselves, so other people can see it, because they're very concerned about this image. They protect at all costs. It's almost like an idol. It's almost like idol worship. They worship themselves, and it's true, right? When you think of it, and I made a video some time ago entitled Narcissist. I didn't say narcissist, I said Narcissus. Narcissus was a Greek, like I said before in that video, who back in the day, what had happened was that, well, way before many of us were born, what had happened was that he hated everybody, right? And he hated everyone, and he didn't want approval from anyone with regards to how he looks, with regards to what he has, right? And so what he did was, because he worshipped himself so much and because he loved his image so much, he spent a lot of time, staring at himself in a pond. Right. And when he stared at himself in this pond for so long, he didn't eat, he didn't drink, he didn't sleep, he didn't do anything. He just stared at himself because he was in love with that image of himself. And then what happened was he died. He fell into that pond and he died. Right. So it's the same thing with the narcissist, right? Eventually narcissists destroy themselves, right? Because they're so obsessed with their image. Many times you'll see narcissists look in the mirror many times a day. Now, not every narcissist, because my ex-wife didn't do that necessarily. She looked in the mirror to check herself out, but she didn't, take time to, stare at herself a lot, as well, as far as I know. But what I'm saying is that narcissists, they do that because they're so in love with that image that they've crafted for themselves, that they need to do all the things that they can to protect that image at all costs, right? Because they don't want anybody figuring out the nasty person that they are underneath. Because anybody that has to, destroy other people, or disrespect other people, or put other people down, or invalidate them, or manipulate them, or gaslight them, or smear campaign them, or financially abuse them, physically abuse them if you're dealing with a malignant narcissist. Anybody that needs to do these things I mentioned, and there's more projection, mirroring, goal posting, and all that stuff. Anybody that has to do these types of things to people is somebody who is a very weak person. Somebody who is not, stable within themselves, right? And it has nothing to do with you. And this is why it's so difficult for people to wrap their heads around and be able to move on in life, because they blame themselves, thinking that it was them, that caused this on themselves, when really it was the narcissist who gaslighted them, those individuals, to make them feel like that it was that they were the reason why it didn't work out, the narcissist. right? But the truth is, it has nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with the people. It has to do with the narcissist, that they're so insecure, that they're so filled with anxiety, and they're so depressed. And when somebody's depressed, that's the next level of, demon possession, because now the demons attached to them. And now what happens is that they start becoming this person, that is not based in reality, right? And when that person's not based in reality, now they're doing things that the devil does, which is, gaslighting. The devil's been doing that from the beginning of time. If you're new to this channel, and if you're not a Christian, I encourage you to read, the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis, it talks about what happened in the Garden of Eden, where, the Satan, the archangel Michael, he was given everything, right? In the beginning of time, he was given everything. And what he did with all that was, because he was jealous. He was jealous of God, because he wanted to be God. He wanted to be at the top, right? But then he realized that he wasn't, because God created the earth, and the devil can't create anything, right? He can manipulate to make it seem like he creates everything, but he doesn't create anything, right? Because he doesn't have the power to do that, right? But he had a choice. The archangel, Michael, had a choice. He could have said, you know what, I've been given all this stuff, I'm grateful for it, and taken all of it. But he decided not to, right? He threw it all away, right? And then that's when the downfall of humanity started, right? Where now the demons attached to Michael. And now that those demons attached to Michael, right? Now he becomes the devil, the Satan himself. And then Satan, he comes as the father of light. He comes as your best friend, which is what he did to Adam and Eve, right? In the Garden of Eden. He said, they said that, God told us not to eat the fruit. And then Satan says, well, no, God didn't say that. That's not true. Now they're being gaslighted. And now Eve decides to eat the fruit. And then comes the next downfall of humanity as well, right? So what I'm saying here, guys, and I know that I went off a little bit, but I'm speaking truths here. What I'm saying, guys, is that you have to remember and keep this in mind. When you're dealing with somebody, right, and you're getting to know this person, like, let's say that you're just getting to know them as a friend. Let's say that you just want a friend or something, okay? And you're getting to know them as a friend, or you want to get to know them for a relationship. Let's say you want a long-term relationship, right? What you need to look for is, can this person be direct with me? Do they answer me directly, or do they beat around the bush and give me some sort of excuse as to why they can't answer my question, right? Or why they can't just be forthcoming, right? Those are things to look for. Those are important things to look for, because when they're doing that, what they're showing you is that they're hiding something from you, most likely, and also that you don't matter that much to them, right? That they don't care about who you are as a person, right? Because if they did, then they would have no problem with answering your question, because you answer their questions when they ask you questions. So why can't they answer your questions when you ask them questions, right? And like I said before, and this is very true, that a lot of influencers, a lot of people don't talk about, is that, when you're dealing with a narcissist, when everything feels one-sided, right? When you answer their questions, but they don't answer your questions directly, right? That's how that's a direct way that you know that you're dealing with a narcissist, because narcissists, they're afraid of answering questions directly, because they need to think inside their mind, they need to rehearse inside their mind, rather, how they're going to answer your question. And if they're caught off guard, they can't handle it, right? Narcissists don't like being caught off guard, because if they are, that means that they have to come up with some sort of lie that they're going to tell their targets or their victims in order for that person to believe them, right? And narcissists do this all the time. They spend their whole lives, crafting stories, making things up that never happened, right? Because they need to, because it's to protect that false image that they are, right? That's why they're doing it, because they're a false image. And so, like I said before, guys, recognize when you're dealing with this false image. And one way to recognize this, can they answer questions directly? Does it feel one-sided, right? And if it's feeling one-sided, if it feels like every time you're talking to this person, there's some sort of word salad from them, where they're talking about something that has nothing to do with anything that you're talking about, right? Now, I understand sometimes, you get so into the conversation that you guys talk about many different things all at once. I get that, because I've been in many of those conversations myself. But what I'm saying is that it shouldn't feel one-sided, right? It shouldn't feel like you're telling all the truths, but that they're telling all the lies, right? It should parallel where you're telling the truths, they're telling the truths. You tell some things differently, they tell some things like it should feel like meshing, right? Like it's meshing and combining properly. Right, like when you're making a recipe as a chef, when I make a recipe, right, and I combine this stuff, it should all combine properly to make the right dish, right? And if it's not, that means that there's something wrong. Same thing with when you're dealing with a narcissist. It would always feel like there's something wrong. If they can't answer questions directly, if it feels one-sided, that means there's something wrong, right? And that something is not you, right? It has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the fact that you're dealing with somebody that does not like to take accountability, that does not, for the sake of this video, doesn't like to answer questions directly. Right? Now, I understand sometimes we don't have the answers to all the questions, right? Sometimes you're talking to someone and they just say, I don't know. And sometimes they don't know. I understand that. But what I'm saying, guys, is that if you have to look for patterns, and I'm going to make a video entitled Pattern Recognition sometime soon, but you have to recognize patterns, right? If it becomes a pattern of behavior where where it's a constant thing where they just can't answer a direct question, they can't just give you an answer, right? They can't just say, yeah, this is what happened, and then they talk about that thing. They can't just focus on that. If it becomes a constant thing, then you know that there's something wrong, right? And it's not you. Again, it's not you. This is what narcissists want you to think. They want you to think that you're the problem. They want you to think that you're crazy, that that there's something wrong with you, that maybe your memory's off, right? But know that that's not you. That they know, because the thing is, I want to tell you guys this. Narcissists know when they're caught. Yeah, I'll tell you that. I'll be real about that. Narcissists know when they are caught red-handed. When you have them cornered, they know that, because what they start doing when they're cornered is that's when they'll really word salad you, and that's when they'll really gaslight you, and that's when they'll give you the silent treatment. Like they won't say anything, right? Or they'll say, "Oh, I need to think." Like that's what my ex-wife would do a lot of the times when she knows that I was on to her about something, when she wasn't being honest with me. She knew that I had her cornered, and she would say, "I need to think." And then 30 minutes would go by, and then almost an hour would go by, and I would say, have you come up with an answer yet? And then she's like, can we not talk about this? Can we talk about something else? Can we move on? Can we just leave it alone? And then she would start crying those crocodile tears and start making it seem as though I was the problem, when really, all I wanted was the truth, right? That's all I wanted was the truth, right? And that's what I'm sure if you're on this channel, that's what you want. All you want is the truth. You just want people to be honest. You just want people to say what they mean, right? If you have a problem, then say it, right? So you have to understand, but narcissists don't operate that way, right? They operate that they believe and they've convinced themselves inside their minds that there's nothing wrong with them, that they're never doing anything wrong, right? That everybody should bow. Remember, I talked about my videos, high sense of self-importance. That's what narcissists have, a high sense of self-importance, where everybody is down there and they're all the way up here. When in retrospect, that's actually not true. We are all the way up there. The narcissist is all the way down there, right? But narcissists want us to think that we are down there when it's not true. Right? It's part of their deception. It's part of their games. It's part of the devil's games, that the devil tries to manipulate our minds. He tries to gaslight our minds so that we can't think for ourselves, right? So that's why I say, guys, pay very close attention to when somebody can't even be direct and answer a direct question. Right? Now, if they say, I don't know, like, again, I'm going to reiterate this so that you guys understand what I'm saying. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. But what I'm saying, guys, is that it doesn't mean if you ask someone a question, they just say, I'm not sure yet, but I can find out for you, then that's somebody who's stable, and they have to actually get back to you. That's another thing, guys. If you ask someone a question, and they say, I don't know, but I can find out for you, but then you never hear back from them, that's somebody that you don't want to get involved with. Then they showed you who they are. Right? But what I'm saying is that people who, are genuine and real, they'll say, I don't know, let me find out for you. And then they give you the answer. Then you know that that's somebody that you want to keep. Those people are far in between, but those people exist, right? But you have to, be aware of these people, because that's how people get taken for granted, right? And then you'll be giving and giving and giving and giving and giving until there's nothing left to give. And then they're going to take until there's nothing left to take. right? And then before you know it, everything from you is gone, and then they've taken everything, and then that's when they disappear. That's how narcissists are. Everything, they take everything from everyone, and then they disappear as if nothing happened. They do the same thing to the next person, and the same thing to the next person. And then sometimes they'll go back, and then they'll go back to those other people that they've taken from, and they try to do their same cycle of nonsense again, which is the love bomb stage, then the devaluation, and then the discard. And then after that, sometimes there's a Hoover, right? Well, I would say most of the times there's a Hoover, because they check people to they what's called shit test people, which is when they try to see if they will get away with their nonsense again with the same person who's probably figured them out by now. And if they haven't, then sooner or later they'll figure them out, because narcissism is being talked about everywhere, right? So everybody ought to know something about what narcissism is, right? So these are all things that are very important, and these are things that this is something to pay attention to. They when the narcissist doesn't answer questions directly, because they don't, right? And they feel as though they should be entitled to not have to, right? But Father Time's ticking, right? And time's getting away from them, and they know that their time is running out, right? Narcissists know that things aren't working out the way that they deem that they're working out, right? Because they want to present a false image. Remember, I talked about the false image that everything is great, that their life is smooth sailing, that they just discarded their partner or their spouse or their friend or their family member. They've just discarded them, and then they moved on to somebody else, and they make it seem as though, oh, this person's amazing, this person's everything I've ever wanted. When in retrospect, it's not true. That person, they're abusing that person just like they abused you. But the thing is, they're just doing it differently in a different way, depending on what that person provides for them, right? Sometimes the narcissist abuses at a fast rate. Now, the older narcissists get, the more impatient they get, the more nastier they get, because, as you get older, you get more impatient. You have a lower tolerance for nonsense, right? And so narcissists, especially, they'll cycle through people like it's nothing, right? Because they're never satisfied with anyone. Just imagine if they can't be satisfied with someone as good as you, right, which they will never find again. What makes you think that they're going to be satisfied with anybody else, right? They're not. So it's the truth. All right. All right, guys. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Narcissists can't answer questions directly. Like I said, if you would like a one-on-one session, please feel free to email me, paul.wisdom_03@hotmail.com. Or you can send a text message 647-406-3057. If you want to talk, if you want to vent, if you need some more advice, if you're trying to figure out whether the person you're dealing with is a narcissist or not, please feel free to reach out to me. Like I said before, if you want to call, please send a text first and let me know your name. Let me know you've been watching some of my videos, and then I can help you. If you just call me, I may just block the number, but just know that before you contact me and things like that. You can even email me as well. That's cool as well. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with somebody who you think could use the knowledge. Share this video with someone who could potentially be going through this right now. Also, there's a link to the podcast down below that I spoke on about my narcissistic experience. Please feel free to watch the podcast. It's 2 parts that I spoke on, and please feel free to watch that as well, please. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for everybody who continues to support the channel. Almost at 60 subscribers. That's amazing. And so I hope that you guys can continue to understand it. Drop a comment below. Definitely comment below if this video helped you out. And I hope to see you on the next video. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate y'all.